I'm sure many people were surprised when the Daily Wire announced that they bought their own film, but when you look deeper into it, it's not that surprising. Because of course there'd be no Daily Wire if Ben Shapiro had not failed in his dream to become a Hollywood screenwriter. He immediately after started to write a book in an attempt to expose the bias against conservatives within the industry, so he obviously didn't take this rejection very well. The film is called Run, Hide, Fight, and is written by Kyle Rankin. I watched an interview with Kyle, and he seems fairly measured, but the producer, Dallas Sunnier, is anything but. Last year he downplayed the behaviour of Adam Donahue, a fellow conservative producer, after he was arrested for sexually assaulting a child. Dallas recently did an interview with Shapiro, and barely talks about the film, instead peddles constant conservative talking points.
I would love to take Biden at his word for unity, but it's never going to happen. If people want to watch movies like this and continue to consume content that isn't preaching a message to them and jamming a sort of a secular worldview down their throats, then they have to support a conservative economy. And by that, I mean everything, a conservative Hollywood alternative. And I know those people. They're still my friends. They're unhappy. They're insecure. They're confused about the lockdowns and living in California under Gavin Newsom. They're confused about all this. They're moving to Texas. They're calling me. Even my sort of lovely liberal friends. If your company is pushing a critical race theory on you, get out of that company. If you're going to a college and your professor is pushing an agenda on you, speak up.
The film starts off with a classic hunting scene where a father imparts their wisdom by killing a deer and telling their kid to finish the job. And in stereotypical fashion, the girl is too scared and
suffer for.
Oh, that came out of nowhere. Fun fact, they actually shot and killed a deer to create the scene, which is in violation of a number of film and hunting regulations. In the next scene, we find that Zoe, the main protagonist, is dealing with some mental health issues caused by the death of her mother and gets confronted by her army veteran dad. Her dad tells her to take off the army jacket so that she can enter the real world, since the jacket represents her inner turmoil. This film is a big fan of symbolism, but we'll get back to that later. We're then introduced to Zoe's friend, Lewis.
Should be easy for you if you're really not at war.
Sorry, not breaking, just entering.
So the first non-white character in this film is introduced by joking about crime. Yikes. By the way, I'm going to try my best to not overreach on the intent of Kyle, but it's hard not to since he has an obvious conservative bias. Zoe and Lewis make their way to school, but are bumped off the road by a group of Trumpers, and Lewis comes up with a great reply.
Thanks guys, stay woke!
Then beats himself up for being a pushover or something. This whole sequence is just really confusing. They arrive at school, and I know it's the end of the year, but this school is really odd.
So, shall we open up our books to page
Breathing.
1?
Scholar, to allow my cousin
Whatever
to
it
speak
is,
it
make
to...
it quick, please. Thank you.
Fair maiden, wilt thou accompany me to the promenade?
Yes.
Zoe gets confronted by her teacher and basically told to stop being so sad that her mom died, and Zoe replies by saying that she's fine and she'll do what she wants. Lewis asks Zoe to the prom but gets turned down, and then Zoe gets shoulder barged by some goth girl.
Hey, you got studs on, girlfriend.
As Lewis questions his life choices, a van smashes through into the cafeteria. The choreography in the scene is especially bad. It gets worse and worse with every watch. They all react at the same time like NPCs in a video game. And what are these guys in the foreground doing? The shooters climb out of the van, and it turns out the goth girl is a shooter. What a surprise. Oh, by the way, this film is based around a school shooting, in case you weren't aware. Initially, I thought the filmmakers were hinting at the shooters being white supremacists or Nazis, because one of them is holding an MP40, a commonly used submachine gun used by the Nazis. But later on in the film, they say this.
Good thing is, we're not Nazis.
So if they're not Nazis, why use this gun? Seems like an odd choice since it's not particularly realistic in this situation. Hang on a second. What other major power historically used the MP40? I'm just messing around, of course, because the gun has been used in many conflicts, so it's difficult to state what the intent was. It's still fun to imagine that Kyle made the shooters communists. Then Tristan, the main villain of the film, announces himself with this iconic line.
Trigger warning.
Ugh. They kill a couple of students, and we realise Tristan is pretty much a Heath Ledger Joker wannabe. It's not terrible, but it seems rather uninspired. He aimlessly rambles throughout the movie, making zero sense, while being really chill in every scene, kind of like Alex Jones on a heavy amount of tranquilizers, while also playing the Joker. Zoe manages to escape into the vents, and for some reason loses her balance while lying down, and falls through the roof. Let's watch this scene again. It's really dumb. Zoe finds out she's trapped with another woman who gets killed when she gives herself up. Zoe then crawls for no reason, apart from dramatic effect, and escapes. So the door was right there. Tristan informs the faculty of the situation, but they say they can't lock down the school until they have further confirmation. This is probably the most frustrating scene in the movie. How can they not hear gunshots or screaming students? People have phones. Why? Zoe runs away to freedom, but then realises there's another hour until end credits, so has to turn around and warn other students of the situation. Again, it's so frustrating how oblivious people are to the situation when there's guns firing meters away. The security guard bursts into the cafeteria, but oh no, he doesn't have a gun. Doesn't he know that the only way to beat a bad guy with a gun is to have a good guy with a gun? This is blatant political commentary, and it's so jarring. If you weren't aware, this is a narrative that conservatives push after mass shootings. Without fail, they say that shootings could be prevented if there were more guns in the hands of the good guys.
We know that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. No one is taking your guns.
Maybe in this instance, a gun in the hands of a security guard would have helped, but in general, more guns means more deaths. There's a reason why the US has such a high rate of shootings, despite having so many good guys with guns. As a result of there being no good guy with a gun, the head teacher gets killed, and the security guard cries like a little baby. The students try to alert the school. I'm just going to move on, that's so stupid. Then Zoe just goes, screw it, I'm just going to throw a brick through the window so people finally pay attention. She then sets off the fire alarm, but Tristan has thought through this eventuality and sends the goth girl to disable it. The fire alarm turns off, and everyone just assumes it's an end of year prank. What could possibly go wrong by ignoring a fire alarm?
What's going on? Pranking? Okay. Alright, false alarm everyone.
Then Zoe slips and slides. Is this just an American thing? Is this what you guys just do at the end of each year?
Fuck you, Becky.
Anyway, I agree. Screw you, Becky. The faculty lock down the school, so Zoe is prevented from escaping. 3 chest compressions, and my job here is done.
This is for stealing all my weed.
This is probably the least accurate interpretation of a school shooter. A weed-smoking goth girl is the last person you would expect. Lewis gets shown a video of Zoe lying on the ground, which adds no suspense, since we know she's playing dead. In case you forgot Lewis was a character in this film, he's just been in the cafeteria this whole time.
Channel 5 just interrupted their programming. They're warning viewers about graphic content because they're about to air the live stream.
Wait, why would a news network air a live stream of a shooting? While Zoe is complaining about the school lockdown policy, she gets shot in the leg by the goth girl. Wow, that's one strong locker. Why are there so many balloons in here? I think I'm just going to stop questioning things. Zoe wrestles the goth girl and shoots her in the head. We then get a scene of one of the shooters talking to himself. The way this film portrays mental health issues is pretty cartoonish. Zoe goes to hit one of the shooters with the metal bar, and then's like, nope. Yet another clip you can just watch over and over. What were they thinking when they shot this scene? The shooter is then defeated with a fire extinguisher, then switches sides because the plot requires it.
Hey, you remember that friend I was telling you about, the
the one that saved all of our asses? She's calling from inside.
How progressive of Carl to include a non-binary character in his film. In all seriousness, this looks like a mistake. How do you misgender your protagonist? Tristan talks with the police officer and rambles incoherently. Oh yeah, by the way, in the meantime the dad has sneaked into the perimeter with his rifle. Zoe and Tristan finally confront. I felt zero tension during the scene. The characters have no connection to each other apart from going to the same school. Tristan doesn't even know Zoe's name.
Green jacket girl? When's the last time you took that damn thing off?
Symbolism, yay. Out of nowhere, Shotgun Guy appears, ready to redeem himself, and immediately gets blown away. Zoe and Lewis run away, and it's revealed that Lewis has been shot. Zoe and Lewis have their romantic moment, and then Zoe just leaves him to probably bleed out. Zoe gets cornered by the shooter, and Dad comes to the rescue. He then gets arrested. Zoe saves the day by moving the van away, and then gets arrested for some reason. A bomb goes off and it's assumed that Tristan gets blown up. Zoe's mom goes away for some reason, and Zoe can no longer talk to her. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Zoe talks to her mom throughout the film, since it symbolises her unwillingness to move on.
All right. I was at war.
Thank Christ for that.
But wait, so Zoe has moved on from the death of her mother because she survived a school shooting. I can't understate how ignorant Kyle is of not just mental health issues, but just how the human brain works. Zoe has just survived an incredibly traumatic event, and she just strolls out and is chill. I wouldn't have an issue with this normally. Films do this all the time, but this film attempts to grapple with mental health issues with both the main protagonist and the villains, and fails on all accounts. She then remembers that Lewis is in this film after she left him to bleed out. Zoe then spots Tristan sneaking away. It makes sense that no one recognised him because he's wearing a cap. Zoe takes her dad's gun. What? How incompetent are the police in this town? How does that happen? This film really implodes towards the end because Kyle couldn't think of a way to tie things up, so everything is so forced and nonsensical. Zoe shoots Tristan.
I didn't expect to deal with this scenario.
Oh, it's like the first scene. Ah, here comes The Rock. This is my favourite character. Realising the jail time she's facing, Zoe decides against The Rock and walks away to let Tristan bleed out. That's it. That's the film. As you can probably tell by now, it's far from a classic. The film seems to be based on a fantasy that many people have. When there's a crisis, they'll be the ones to step up and save the day. Apart from the poor writing, the reason why this film is so terrible is mainly down to it being based around a school shooting. Apart from being tasteless, it doesn't set up interesting characters and plot points. The film becomes predictable, and most importantly, the villains are really boring. There's no build-up, they just rock up and announce that they're the bad guys. While it's obvious that Carl has injected a huge amount of political bias into his film, I don't think there's a coherent political message to take from it. I guess the good guy with the gun meme is fairly prevalent, but that's about it. If I really wanted to push it, I would say that Carl hinted at the shooters being leftist. Apart from the M40 thing, Tristan is bi, the goth girl smokes weed, and is a goth girl, as well as them saying that they weren't Nazis, so there's subtle suggestions that Carl wanted to paint them as libs or leftists, but the evidence is fairly tenuous. I think if we're being fair, they're just mentally ill characters, tinged with bad writing. Right, that's it. I could go on, but I've had enough of this movie. Finally, I'll give Run, Hide, Fight a rating of
Asshole casserole.